I never thought I'd be told I couldn't walk to a lake that I built with my own two hands. But that's exactly what happened one Thursday afternoon. I was standing on a trail I had carved nearly a decade earlier, holding a bucket of trout feed in one hand and bolt cutters in the other, when this kid, barely old enough to rent a car, rolled up in a little golf cart and told me straight-faced that I wasn't allowed on their lake. He pointed at a shiny aluminum sign that read, "Private lake, members only, trespassers will be prosecuted." And for a second I just stood there blinking in the Georgia heat, trying to figure out if I was being pranked. See, my name's Robert Langford. I'm 49, technically retired, though I swear I've worked harder in retirement than I ever did in 20 years with the U.S. Geological Survey. After leaving the agency, I bought 140 acres of rough terrain just outside Monroe County. It was nothing but ravines, red clay snakes, and a spring that trickled into a muddy little creek. The land was cheap because nobody wanted it. But I did. I saw something in it that other people missed. It took 4 years of sweat-busted equipment mountains of paperwork and more back pain than I care to remember, but I turned that land into a lake. A real one. Engineered and certified dams, spillway fish, ladders, sediment, control the whole 9 yards. It cost me close to $600,000, and I don't regret a penny. I even named it Lake Langford, though honestly, only I and a couple of biologists ever called it that. For a few years it was perfect, quiet, peaceful mine. Then came the trouble. A developer bought the adjoining ridge and built a community he called Cedar Ridge Estates. Big stucco houses stacked shoulder to shoulder, pitched as lake access homes. I didn't raise a fuss. The guy came to me, directly offered a shoreline agreement so the lots could face water. I agreed, but only with strict conditions. No permanent easements, no right of use, just a view. He signed. I signed notarized done deal. But developers move on, and HOA boards. They multiply like weeds. Somewhere along the way, that agreement disappeared into a drawer, or maybe a shredder. And 8 years later, I was being told by a rent-a-cop in a $9 polo shirt that I couldn't step foot on my own land. I told him straight, "Son, I built this trail. That shoreline is mine. That dam you see through the trees, also mine." He just tapped his little touch screen and said, "HOA jurisdiction starts at that cedar post. Non-members must apply for permits." Permits. On my land. I laughed in his face. He mumbled about escalating to the HOA president, and I told him to go right ahead. Just make sure she brings a surveyor and a court order next time she tries to post signs on my property. I tossed the trout feed in the brush and drove home. But I wasn't just annoyed anymore. I was angry, and not the shouting kind. The quiet, calculating kind. That night, I pulled out the thick fireproof folder labeled Lake Langford Original Plans and Ownership. Every permit, every inspection, every receipt. I ran my fingers across the engineering diagrams, and I knew I wasn't going to let them rewrite history. If they wanted to claim my lake, then they'd better be ready to live without it. 2 days later, I got their letter. Gold embossed stationery full of corporate fluff about unauthorized presence in HOA zones and failure to comply with community guidelines. They even threatened to suspend my community privileges. I wasn't even a member. I drove straight to their office, which was nothing more than a converted model home that smelled like lemon cleaner and pretension. The president, a woman named Victoria Myers, came out in a stiff pantsuit with a handshake so fake it almost squeaked. "Mr. Langford, we're simply enforcing community rules. Cedar Ridge Estates has collective responsibility for the lakefront." I cut her off. "The lakefront isn't yours, not 1 inch of it. I've got the deeds, the permits, the surveys, the maps, you name it. That lake didn't exist until I spent 4 years carving it out of mud. She kept smiling that politician's smile, but her eyes flickered when I leaned in and told her, "Flat lady, you've already started a war. You just don't know it yet." Then I walked out. Back home, I checked my trail cameras, caught their guards wandering my ridgeline, leaving candy wrappers like it was some public park. That was the last straw. The following Saturday morning, I walked down to the dam with a cup of black coffee pulled on my gloves and opened the bypass gate. Within hours, the lake started to drop. By Sunday, it was down 4 feet. Their docks dangled in the air like broken teeth. Their boat ramps ended in cracked mud, and the fancy reeds they planted fried in the sun. On their Facebook group, yeah, I'd been lurking under a fake profile. They were losing it. Why is the lake disappearing? Is this sabotage? Victoria posted a picture of the shoreline with the caption, "Our lake is being tampered with. Authorities are investigating." I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee. Then a local reporter called, said the HOA tipped them off. Would I like to give my side? Oh, I'd love to. I sat her down in my workshop with maps, permits, contracts, even the original shoreline agreement that said in bold letters, "Access may be revoked at any time by property owner." She printed the article the next day. Private lake owner pushes back against HOA overreach. The headline alone sent their community into meltdown. That's when the lawsuit came. 30 pages of nonsense demanding I restore the water levels, hand over access, and pay $125,000 for emotional distress and loss of neighborhood prestige. Prestige. I poured myself a whiskey and called my attorney, an old friend named Carla Jennings. She didn't even blink. "Send me the papers. I'll shred them." In court, their slick lawyer went on about community harmony and natural resources. Carla rolled out my engineering plans, permits, and that shoreline contract, slapped them on the table, and told the judge, "This lake did not exist until my client built it. This is not a natural amenity. This is an attempted land grab." The judge leaned forward and said, "Show me the deed." They had nothing. Injunction denied. Signs ordered removed. The look on Victoria's face. Priceless. I thought that was the end, but lowering the water exposed something worse. Illegal drain pipes from their lots pumping fertilizer and pesticide straight into my lake. Nitrates off the charts. I reported it to the State Environmental Division, and within a week, inspectors hit them with $85,000 in fines plus a remediation order. And because of a clause in the original shoreline contract, those violations permanently voided any claim they had to lake access. Game over. I reinforced my boundaries with cedar post fencing, motion cameras, and a steel gate across their favorite trail. New signs went up. Private reservoir trespassing is a federal offense. I even ran seismic sensors along the dam. The HOA panicked. Internal documents leaked online showing they knew all along the lake wasn't theirs. Residents turned on Victoria, board members resigned, and the developer went bankrupt after investors bailed. By the end of the quarter, Cedar Ridge HOA dissolved completely. Victoria vanished. Her house foreclosed. Me. I converted Lake Langford into a federally recognized ecological preserve. Now only researchers and nonprofits with permits can access it. The HOA doesn't exist anymore. Their lake access homes are just houses with a view of a fence. Sometimes, neighbors still wave when I walk the ridge. Hesitant, guilty little waves. I don't wave back. Not because I hate them, but because some things you don't paper over with small talk. This lake cost me sweat years of my life, and more than a few scars, and they tried to steal it with a smile and a letterhead. I didn't drain the water out of spite. I drained it to remind them of the truth. The truth is, they never owned the lake. They never owned a single inch of it. And now the only sign left standing says exactly what they should have known from the start. This lake exists because someone built it. Not for HOA, not for profit, but for balance. So tell me, what do you think? Was I too harsh, or did they get exactly what they deserved? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear if you'd have handled it the same way, and don't forget to share this with someone who's ever dealt with an HOA gone mad.